Blog Talk Radio, the world's largest online radio network.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, viewers and listeners from coast to coast and worldwide. This is the Hagmann Report, is heard live every weekday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Doug Hagmann. I'm the founder and director of the Northeast Intelligence Network on the Internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. With me is my co-host, Joe Hagmann. He will be with me here shortly. I just want to welcome everyone to our program tonight. I'll tell you what, we had a great show last night, and it was just incredible, I thought. I got a lot of good emails from this and from our show, and a lot of positive, just a great response. By the way, welcome back, Joe.
Yeah,
into the studio. I can't hear you. Oh yeah, okay, here we go.
All right.
That's better. Keep me away from buttons, I got to tell you.
Glad to be here. Excellent show last night. We received a wonderful response, and I just want to thank everybody who listened. It was such a powerful show, and the feedback was tremendous. And
both echo feedback as well as the show feedback. We had a little echo problem with Joe's headset yesterday, but we got through that okay.
Yeah.
Tonight we're going to have a special guest. Folks, you know, if you wonder what's going on today, this gentleman, in terms of what's going on inside the White House, what's going on in the mind of Obama, White House, and such. The gentleman we're going to have on tonight, Larry Grathwohl, is in fact an expert on that. He's on. Okay.
I'm here.
Mr. Grathwohl, I want to just tell you what a pleasure it is to have you on our program. You're one of my heroes, as I wrote in our promo for tonight. You're one of our heroes, certainly one of my heroes. You served as an operational asset and informant for the FBI in 1969 and 1970. In the late 60s, and infiltrated the Weather Underground, a very dangerous mission. And I'll tell you did a heck of a job in identifying domestic terrorists at the time. But I don't have to tell you that. But for the listeners, folks, I got to tell you, this guy is again one of our heroes, one of our a true patriot to America, and I'm so excited to have him on. And I just want to welcome you, Mr. Grathwohl, to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Well, let me thank you for that very kind introduction. I appreciate what you're saying, and I accept it with humility. But I want you to know that in my own beliefs, I feel that if anyone in my position had been faced with the same set of circumstances, I hope, and I emphasize that I hope that they would have done the same thing. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to stand up to it, but that's beside the point, isn't it? It's what I believe that this country is made of. It's what I believe that our people are made of, and I just prefer to believe that.
Well, you know, look, I did serve as an operational asset for the Department of Justice and the FBI in the mid-1990s, and for a couple of years, and also for 2 state police departments. And I got to tell you something. When you sign on the dotted line, I'm not sure back then if you had to sign anything, but when you sign on the dotted line saying that, hey, if anything happens to you, if we accidentally shoot you or you get shot or whatever, you know what? Too bad for you, and your family's not gonna. Your state can't sue us, and basically you surrender all of your rights and liberties. And you know, you have to think before you sign that, and you think, wow, you know, I mean, this is really dangerous. So,
well, I have to admit this that back in those times they didn't present me with a document that, you know, that gave them, you know, all that power and authority over me. And I guess I always thought that at some point, if it came down to a choice between what I believed to be right and wrong, that I had the option of doing what I thought was right. But to a sense, to a degree, you're right. You are surrendering your identity. Eventually, I was indicted. I became a federal fugitive. I mean, think about that. I'm an innocent person. I've never committed a crime in my life. And suddenly, because of my underground status, and because of the FBI and the Justice Department's attempt to try to save my cover, I became a federal fugitive. That meant that any cop on the street could have shot me and been completely within his rights to do so.
Wow.
But
wow.
You know, isn't that the same thing I did in Vietnam?
Yeah.
You know, when I went to Vietnam, I put on a uniform and carried a gun, and I said to the enemy, if you can get me in your sights, you can shoot me. Hopefully, of course, I'm going to get you in my sights first, but that is ultimately, in my belief, what makes this country what it is. You know, in the Revolutionary War, men marched in the snow, barefooted, with bloody feet, starving to death because of a belief. And isn't that what we're all about?
You know, that is, but do you think, and I know we talked a little bit off air, that is indeed what we're all about, but do you think Americans, are we still all about that? Do you think?
That's a tough question. You know, for a patriot like myself, I want to believe that that's the truth. Okay, I have members in my family that I know believe as I do, and they may not feel as strongly about it as I do, but I believe that they are committed. Just a little aside, okay, and this is a story that is of family significance rather than anything else, but it is rather well documented on our side of the family that Abraham Lincoln is my fifth cousin.
Oh, wow.
Now, that means that he, got fifth cousin, he's hardly related to me at all. But you can imagine growing up in a family where that is believed as to what we think about what our duty and our honor and our obligations to our country might be and to one another. And certainly that is part of what motivated and drove me. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there, white Americans, black Americans, Hispanic Americans, who can look back at their heritage and they know that members of their family gave all. And what? For a belief.
For
a belief
that's right.
in our freedom and our democracy. And so I choose to believe that's what is there. And you're right, there's probably a lot of people that look at me and laugh and and think that, Larry Grathwohl doesn't, know which side of the earth the sun comes up on. But I believe it.
Well, I'm glad you do. I have faith that there is what I'll call a remnant out there that I believe will save this country or they have the ability to save this country. I refuse to give up all hope on America, and I know, Joe, you do too.
I feel America will never be the same again as far as our freedoms, as far as our foundation, cornerstone that we built this nation on, a faith, Christian faith. Though that's gone, we see the name of Jesus, the Bible, and Ten Commandments treated as some kind of extreme rogue literature
right.
instead of the historical, given the historical value that it deserves. And I just don't see the people coming together when they are trying to fill their instant gratifications with TV and sports, and they're too distracted, in my mind, to even care what's going on. And then you have the other side, that the politically indoctrinated to either the right or the left, where it's not an issue of who's running, but as long as their guy gets in. And as long as we have that mentality,
Yeah, I mean the values are definitely not the same. But Larry,
I'd like to
go ahead.
interject something here, okay? Just for a moment, and I don't want to take total umbrage with what you just said. I think that you're right. You know, we live in a different day and age, particularly when we look back at 3,000 years ago when Jesus was roaming the countryside, and certainly there was no TV, there was no radio, there was none of that. So, most of what's spread as far as information was by word of mouth. But let me tell you something. I have a daughter and a son-in-law who are spending $8,000 a year to send their son to a Christian school.
Wow.
Now, is it going to be the same Christianity that I learned? I don't know. Certainly things have changed, but they are making that sacrifice to teach that child right and wrong. And that is the same thing that my parents did for me. And you can't out of hand dismiss that. Now, I realize that we've got the Islamic Jihad, and we've got all these crazy people running around the country and around the world that sometimes make absolutely no sense. But the message that Jesus Christ brought us was strong, and it has lived through my grandmother, through my mother, and it's lived through me. And I believe in that. And I believe that this country was founded on those principles, and I am not about ready to give up on it. Now, I may be wrong. Maybe someday, 100 years from now, this history will be, crumbling dust. But I got a feeling that my grandson and his successors are not going to go out calmly in the night. They're going to go out kicking and screaming because of what their mom and dad taught them.
Well, I believe that, and I hope that that's the case, and it's good to know that that belief, at least the core belief that you have, is strong, and that gives me hope.
And if it was not for my parents, being religious themselves and teaching me, taking me to church,
where would you be? Who would you be?
Yeah,
I mean, it's so easy to despair, but Christ told us don't despair, and you can't. You got to pick up your cookies and get going. And you know what? It might be ugly. Right now with this stuff going on in the Middle East, I have a funny feeling that it's going to get uglier and uglier. Okay, I mean, this ambassador to our country in Tripoli was not only murdered, but he was raped before he was murdered. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I in fact I can believe it. It was very much like what they did to Gaddafi. I'll tell you what, Larry. We're going to give you the floor because you brought this up now about the American ambassador. Obviously, that's a direct result of the Obama regime. That mentality, the mentality of the revolutionaries. They love chaos. Obama essentially is the architect of Arab Spring. You go ahead. We're going to give you the floor, Larry. What do you think is happening in the Middle East as it relates to the Obama revolutionary mindset? Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dorn. I mean, you've seen it all.
That's a big job to have the floor, and I don't know what dance step to begin with, but let me, without being facetious and trying to make jokes, let me tell you this. Somehow our president he's more interested in playing a game of golf than he is in responding to what happened to our ambassador. That's just absolutely shocking to me. this man, and I don't know the guy. Who knows what kind of a person he really was? Maybe he was an atheist. But you know what? Even God didn't condemn atheists to that kind of treatment, did he? My God is a merciful God. He doesn't dig holes in ground and put women in it and then stone them to death, or chop people's heads off with a butcher knife because somehow you're going to wind up in heaven with 72 virgins. That's not the God that I grew up with, and I don't believe that. And frankly, if a movie is what spurns them to that kind of violence and that kind of activity, then maybe they truly are barbaric and medieval, and maybe we need to look at them that way. I was just aghast today when I saw Hillary Clinton on TV saying that Islam is an old, incredible religion that has been around for 3,000 years. Tell me something. When did my God tell me that it was okay to kill people? I suppose that during the era of Nazi Germany, we had Germans Nazis who thought that it was okay to kill people because they were Jewish. But let me ask you a question: How could you go next door and shoot a little kid?
Yeah. Because
they were Jewish. I'm sorry. It doesn't even relate in my ability to comprehend things. Okay.
Well, yeah, and most people with that moral compass and any degree of belief in a deity, a legitimate deity, the true living God, I don't believe that they would have that capability either.
I believe in God. I believe that he's there or she's there. I believe that there is a God. I believe that.
Right.
And I believe that these things that are happening to us, we're doing to ourselves. God's not doing it to us. We're doing it.
Okay, how so, Larry? Expand on that. How are we doing this to ourselves? Is this the chickens coming home to roost, so to speak, or what?
It's like all of a sudden. Let me give you the perfect example. I was at the National Council meeting in Flint, Michigan in 1969. Bernadine Dorn was the key speaker. She's standing up on stage, and I've got to tell you that she's a beautiful young lady. Okay? This was quite a few years ago. The kind of woman that many men would desire. And she is glorifying Charles Manson and Charles Manson's family. And she said, and I quote, "Dig it. Not only did they kill those pigs," she's talking about all the people at Sharon Tate's home that were murdered that night, "but they shoved the fork in Sharon Tate's stomach, and then they sat down and ate their dinner." Sharon Tate was 8 months pregnant. Now you tell me where in gospel and anything that it says that you can do such a thing. Now, I was in a war, okay? I had people trying to kill me. And I did things that later I regretted. But you know what? I never deliberately killed a kid. Never.
No.
I never deliberately killed a woman. Did I kill women? I'm sure that I did. Sometimes you couldn't tell the difference. But do you know what I mean? It's the part of us that makes us humanity that seems to be lost. And here these guys are running around in the Middle East, burning things down, killing one another, killing men, women, and children. They have no problem putting a bomb in a market and killing, 35 or 40 men, women, and children. For what?
Yeah, exactly. For what?
And then and I go back to the Holocaust. This is another one. Just rankles me. Grathwohl. I'm a German. Okay. I just cannot believe that my people would have ever done that. Okay. You can imagine. I've been raised and born an American, so I don't have to take any responsibility for what happened in Nazi Germany, but it's the German people that somehow thought that it was okay to load people into train cars and ship them off and put them in gas chambers and shoot them, and that was okay. How did that happen? And when are we going to stop it?
Right, it's happening again.
Yeah, that's what Larry's referring to. It's taking place right now. But Larry, isn't this okay? You spent time with these revolutionaries of the 60s.
Yes.
The very same revolutionaries of 1969 and 1970. And folks, by the way, the new listeners to our show can go to our website, homelandsecurityus.com, and in today's article, for the promotion for tonight's show, is the interview, link to the interview that we did with Larry Grathwohl back in April of this year. But anyway, that said, you spent time with these revolutionaries. These very same revolutionaries, Larry, are now in the White House or have access to the White House and Obama. Do you expect anything less? I mean,
absolutely not.
So what do you think?
They did it back in 1969, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
100 million people into re-education centers, and if we can't re-educate all of them, we'll kill 25%.
Yeah.
No discussion about where the bullets are coming from or how we're going to do it. We'll just kill them. and that's mind-boggling, isn't it? That's the same thing that happened in Nazi Germany.
That's right.
And of course, we would like to put adult faces on all these 25 million people that are in the re-education centers in the United States and make it nice and clean, right? But do you think that's what's going to happen? Don't you think there's going to be little kids and all the other assorted savagery that goes along with it? Death is not clean.
No. Wouldn't
it be nice if it was?
Well, normally, but I think that this, nothing that we're talking about here with respect to this type of death would be clean at all. But Larry, back in 1969, when you heard that statement from Bill Ayers about killing 25 million people, or roughly, what went through your mind at that point? You're actually...
I was absolutely aghast. I'm sitting in a room with people who have graduate degrees from Columbia, from Harvard, from Yale, from Michigan, that some of them are master's degree PhDs, some of them PhDs in history. In history, they know this stuff. And they're talking about, we'll just kill them. And then I remember the stories about, some Nazi SOB who lined people up on a rail car line and tried to see how many people he could kill with one bullet.
Right.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now listen, you're talking to a soldier, okay? This is a guy that's been in the hole and has been threatened and has had to kill. And I can actually tell you, and you might find this astounding, but I was actually in a firefight one day where a woman and 3 kids started to walk down a little dirt path, and everybody stopped shooting. Both sides.
Really?
Yes. And we let them go by. Now,
killers with consciousness. Wow.
Well, it was like, if they're going to stop shooting, so will we. Do you know? So there's that there's that bit of humanity that exists even in the most death-defying situations. But then we talk to Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers. They don't care.
Yeah.
They not only killed those pigs, but they shoved a fork in Sharon Tate's stomach and ate her dinner.
Yeah.
Sharon Tate was 8 months pregnant.
That's right.
Can you believe that?
Now, what role? Now, Bernadine Dorn did not have any role in the Tate killings, obviously. Or
No, she didn't.
She did?
She was glorifying it.
No,
she didn't. Okay,
But now,
okay.
she was involved in the Park Police Station bombing.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, Bill Ayers, her husband, related facts to me about the Park Police Station bombing that no one else could have known but someone that was involved in it. It was also later corroborated by a girl named Karen Latimer and another young man whose name slips me at this moment. So we have actually 3 sources of information that say Bernadine Dorn actually placed the bomb on the ledge at the Park Police Station that killed the police officer.
Wow.
Okay, now there was fence nails, there was roofing staples. This wasn't a bomb made to protest the war. This was a bomb that was made to kill somebody. One other thing, a good friend of mine, Max Knoll, and if you ever want to interview him, I can arrange for him to be on your show. He was the lead FBI agent that was in charge of the investigation for the criminal aspects of the Weather Underground during that time period, okay, 69 and 70. He found the Pine Street Bomb Factory. Pine Street Bomb Factory. They found C4, they found wires, they found detonators, they found literature. Max has said to me, Larry, you know, one of the most interesting things is that we never found any anti-war literature. Now remember, Bernadine and Bill claim today that they were merely an anti-war group.
Right.
That's all they wanted. How come there wasn't any anti-war literature in that apartment? How come they didn't stop their bombings after the war ended in 1975? And one other question. What were voice-activated detonators doing in that apartment?
Clearly.
Remember, back in those days, guys, we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Right?
Well, right.
A voice-activated detonator was for one purpose.
To kill people.
And that was to blow your ass up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, Larry. Okay. Okay. And folks just joining us, I just want to mention this. Our special guest tonight is Larry Grathwohl. He infiltrated the Weather Underground on behalf of the FBI. Larry, let me ask you: why were there no arrests or arrests made in the Park Police bombing in 1970? The bombing that killed the police sergeant and wounded 8 others.
Well, that question gets kind of difficult, okay, and it very easily comes down to this. In the let's call it the 30s and the 40s, the FBI's charter relative to foreign governments being involved in internal espionage here in the United States were bound and charged with one liability, and that was to stop them. There wasn't any laws that said, gee, you know, you've got to go to a judge and get permission to do a wiretap, or you've got to go to a judge and get permission to enter a home.
Right.
So in some ways, those people lost their civil liberties. And of course, those directives continued into the 60s and the 70s when my friends, the weathermen, were busy, at their scenarious deeds.
Right.
Anyway, in 1980, a guy by the name of Frank Church came along. He headed a Senate committee that decided that, you know what, these laws should have been applicable. In other words, you can't put a phone tap on someone's phone without an order from a judge. Well, keep in mind that the Weathermen had contacts with the Cuban DGI, with the North Vietnamese, with other Eastern Bloc countries, not to mention the Russians. So as far as any question of them acting as foreign agents is concerned was moot. But if you apply those laws retroactively, guess what? All of a sudden, all the evidence that has been gleaned from these surreptitious entries and from these illegal, quote-unquote, illegal wiretaps becomes inadmissible.
Yep.
And they walk.
Yep.
So that's how they got off. But it didn't all turn out that way. As an example, Bernadine Dorn was involved as a clerk, I want to say, in Bed and Baby in New York City, where identifications were stolen that were used in the Brinks armored car robbery in New Jersey, in Nantucket. There was a Brinks guard, and 2 police officers killed. And she refused to answer any questions and provide a sample of her handwriting. She did 9 months in jail. That's why she cannot get a law license, and why she's a teacher at Northwestern University instead of a lawyer.
All right.
Isn't it interesting that Kathy Bodine, Charles Gilbert, members of the Black Liberation Army, and others were caught in that robbery? Approximately, I'm going to say, $7-8 million was stolen during that time. Someone named Chesimer was eventually broke out of jail, and she's now living in Cuba. So, again, if these people are so innocent, if they're truly revolutionaries fighting for a just cause, why aren't they here? I would be, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
If I was fighting for the right thing, I'd be standing on the front line. Come and get me.
So what is it all about? What is their ideology, or was their ideology back then, Larry, and continues through this day? What's their motivation here?
Overthrow the government. They want to destroy the United States government and replace it with what they call democratic socialism, which is another word for communism or socialism, whatever term you choose to use. Ultimately, it becomes the state controlling the individual, and now, believe it or not, here becomes the real dichotomy, so to speak, is that Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn, Jeff Jones, Mark Rudd, and Howie Mottinger, and Kathy Wilkerson, and Kathy Bodine, who were all members of the Central Committee of the Weather Underground, they really believed that they were going to succeed. And people look at me today and they say, Larry, what have you been smoking? Well, look at the 60s and the 70s. The whole country was in turmoil against the war. We had the North Vietnamese, we had the Cubans, we had the Eastern Bloc countries. I mean, they were all united against the United States. And these people thought that they were part of that international revolution, and that somehow in amongst all of this, they were going to succeed. Interestingly enough, the Cubans and the North Vietnamese had a meeting in Cuba right around, I'm going to say, June or May of 1969 in Cuba and in Canada, during which time they were criticized for not recruiting people from the street. In other words, the Weathermen were an academic, effete organization that was not recruiting people from the military and from the street, the street thugs, the people that knew how to do things. And then here comes Larry Grathwohl, right out of the Army. I'm a working class person, and they thought I was the greatest thing since Rice Krispies.
Wow.
And I'm serious. It is as complicated as that, and it is at the same time that simple.
And just to jump ahead a little bit, Bill Ayers, who should be in jail, is now a professor or a lecturer for universities. He also heads and organizes with the SDS, the Student Democrat.
The MDS.
And they have people like Richard Dawkins, and they are supporting the homosexuality agenda and getting that pushed through colleges. And I mean, everything he's done since then, trying to destroy capitalism. There was a clip of him last year or the beginning of this year saying every day he wakes up and thinks today's the day he's going to, bring down America. I mean, it just doesn't get any more evil than this. And you talk about concentration camps. I think that's what they're moving towards. They are really trying to implement this.
Is it evil when you consider that that's your objective? I suppose that it's not, because that's your goal. But is it evil when you and I consider it? Yeah, because we believe in freedom, don't we? I love the fact that my neighbor can get up in the morning and holler across the fence at me and tell me that I'm an asshole. I do. And I may not agree with him, but isn't it great that he has that right? It's wonderful. But that wouldn't happen under Bill Ayers' reign. The guy that hollered over the fence would be shot. And you're absolutely right. These guys, they think that what they're trying to do and what they're trying to impose upon us is what at least when I was with them was called democratic centralism, and they claim that is what's being practiced in Cuba, and I'm not sure that that we quite understand what that term means, and I'm not sure that I want to know. But I can tell you this: what they intend to do to me and you and all of the other people that disagree with them is very simple. They're going to eliminate us. They're going to get rid of us. And they have no qualms about it whatsoever. I think Bernadine Dorn's speech about the fork in Sharon Tate's stomach is exemplary of that, isn't it? And I've kind of lost part of your message, and please, if you can, bring me back to it, because I do think it was important, and I wanted to make some comments.
Well, no, I mean, I think you covered this, but there's one thing I kind of want the listeners to understand. Larry, if you look up, for example, if the normal average person that doesn't know your story, they go on their computer and they try to find out, like Bill Ayers, his relationship with Barack Hussein Obama, for example. You might stumble upon Snopes, for example. In Snopes, for a long time, they've been considered this arbitrary or arbiter of the truth, I should say. And Snopes says this, and I'm just going to quote briefly. Documents including all the records of the Annenberg Foundation were released shortly afterwards. This is back in 2008, when Stanley Kurtz suggested that there was a cover-up in the making of a relationship between Barack Obama and Ayers, and of course Bill Ayers and Barack Obama. Everyone was trying to was trying to say, hey, look, there's a relationship there. Well, anyway, Snopes says the following, and I want to get your response on this. Reporters reviewing the records pertaining to Obama and Ayers, that relationship, have found nothing startling linking Barack Obama to the 1960s radical William Ayers. What do you think about that statement?
Well, that's just kind of a general comment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to say. How about Bill Ayers, Thomas Ayers, mailman, who says that he met Barack Obama in and out of Thomas Ayers and his wife's home during the period of time that Barack Obama was a student at Oxnard.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I don't know this man from Adam. I mean, if he walked up and bit me on the nose, I wouldn't know who he was. So why is he saying this thing? It's certainly not because I paid him any money to do it, and I don't think you did you?
Okay. No.
So it okay, but granted, could be a mistake, couldn't it? Right? Identification, who knows? All right. What about the fact that Bill Ayers and Barack Obama went to Columbia University at the same time? Well, gee, they really didn't go to the same college, and so they might have met one another, but then again, they might not have. Well, I don't know, and there's no way for me to prove it, but do you start to see a pattern?
Oh, of course.
All of a sudden, it's got web feet, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then we've got Barack Obama at Harvard University. He's in charge of the law review. Never wrote an article. Have you ever heard of that before? I haven't.
No, I'm sorry. No, I haven't.
I've never heard of it.
No.
Not one law review while he was there. Okay, it's got web feet and feathers, right?
Yeah.
Now, how come we can't get his academic records? Can I get yours?
Well, I certainly wouldn't obstruct you from doing so, or anyone else.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something. If you want mine, ask me. I'll send them to you.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, listen. I was a pretty good student. I got a 3.85. It could have it been better? Yes. I wish I could have been a 4.0, but I wasn't. So, but even if you're a 3.8,
right?
That's nothing to scoff at, is it?
Of course
so why
not.
are you
No.
hiding it? Now all of a sudden it's got a bill, doesn't it? and that's all I'm trying to tell you. It when you start to add these things up, how come? Because where I come from, it doesn't make a big difference.
That's right.
I talk to my brothers and my sisters. They all have advanced degrees. What do they care?
It's true.
They don't care if you know. Would it be great if if they were 4.0 students and were considered at the top of their class, but in most instances they're just happy as hell that they graduated. Right? So tell me, what is this? What's the problem?
Well, let me ask
did I miss the question somehow? If I did, I apologize.
No. I mean, so tell me, Larry, what's going on here? I mean, look, I believe that Ayers and Obama have had and currently have a relationship.
Yeah, I do too.
Now,
I think it went back to Columbia.
Right.
And I think that Obama. I think Bill Ayers. Now, total speculation on my part. Okay. So, for God's sakes, don't put this in the newspaper tomorrow as being Larry Grathwohl analyzes this as being the facts. But total speculation on my part. I think that they met up in Columbia. Maybe even sooner. But regardless, Columbia, I think, was the catalyst. And I think at that point, Bill Ayers recognized that he had somebody who had the smoothness and the leftist commitment that Bill had, but he didn't have the baggage. You know, Bill, there was no way for Bill to become a presidential candidate, right? I mean,
right.
You know, he spent it all in the 60s, didn't he?
That's right.
And all of a sudden he's got somebody that, hey, this guy looks pretty special. And I think that he worked with him, he groomed him, and he made him into what he is. Now, in addition to that, I wonder, again, my speculation, why do they hide from one another? Oh, gee, Bill is just some guy that I see in the neighborhood. They worked in the same office building.
Yeah.
They worked on the Annenberg Challenge together. I mean, come on. If you and I had worked in that same kind of an association, would you deny knowing me?
No. No reason to.
And you know what? I wouldn't deny knowing you either. Why should I?
That's right.
Unless there was something to hide.
Exactly. So, Bill, or Larry, what is it? Okay, in the larger scheme of things, in your gut, you know Bill Ayers. In the larger scheme of things, you know Barack Obama. What's going on here? What is Obama doing? What's the mindset of Barack Hussein Obama based on what you know of Obama's associates, specifically Ayers, Dorn, and others? I mean, what's going on here?
That's an extremely difficult question for me to answer because I really don't know Barack Obama. Okay, you know, I've never sat down at a table and broke bread with him. I've never talked to him, so all I can do is speculate. I will tell you this: Andrew Breitbart,
right,
had that meeting set up for dinner with Bernadine Dorn and several other people in Chicago just before he died. Interestingly enough, Andrew called me up. And this isn't well known, but it's a fact. I'm not worried about, if you want to trace phone calls, you can find out that he called me. And him and I talked for a couple hours. He was primarily interested in Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers and what kind of people they were. And I tried to explain to him that they were very sinister. Now, I realize that when I say that, it conjures up all kinds of things. But by sinister, I mean that it's like think of Hotchbill Hickok playing his cards close to his chest.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like he's trying to lie or deceive to you, but he just doesn't want you to know what he has. And that was Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn. And as a matter of fact, from my understanding of what the dinner went like that night, whenever they tried to confront Bernadine or Bill, the two of them would leave the room and rush back into the kitchen, where they would begin preparing the food. And I don't know if you remember, but Andrew made several comments about how good the food was.
Right.
When he came out of the meeting. What's interesting is that when the time was up, they were gone. There was no conversation. It was no, let's sit around and drink a glass of sherry or shoot the bull. It was time to go, and you're out the door. And Andrew seemed to be a little upset about that, and he told me as much when I talked to him later, that he hadn't had a chance to ask him some of the questions that I had posed that he asked them. Now you can expect that I had all the really good questions, right? You know,
Sure.
how come you're such an asshole, Bill, and those kinds of questions. But I also tried to tone it down with questions that I thought might have, you know, more substance and elicit a little bit better response. And what was interesting is that when it was done, it was done. And Andrew called me from outside the place, and he said, Larry, it's done. He said, I almost feel like I've been kicked out. Well, doesn't that make sense?
Well,
They had no intention of discussing anything of any significance with these people.
No.
Absolutely none. And of course, a few weeks later, Andrew was dead. And you know, there was a big speculation as to what might have happened to him. I've talked to people that I consider to be in very close contact with Andrew, and I do believe that it was a natural death. I have no reason to suspect that it was anything other. But we lost a real hero that night. And again, did I answer your question, or did I skip it? I'm sorry.
Well, no, I you know what, Larry, I think you did. Now, I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. Larry, are you on a Skype connection?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because we're getting some really bad digitization. I'm not sure if people in our chat room can hear.
Up on Skype. How do I do it? I need to know your.
We can.
We'll go on a break here in a couple minutes, and
in fact, let's do that now, folks. I'll tell you what, Larry. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a break, and Joe, how are we going to? You can give Larry. You've got access to. We'll send you an email with the information, right, Joe? Or how do you want to do this?
I think you tell your engineer just to put his name up. I'll find it.
Okay, it's actually Hagmann PI, Hagmann PI.
Okay,
right.
I can do contacts. No, it don't seem to want to do that.
What we can do is we'll give you a call during the. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll give you a call during the break, and yeah, and we're going to fix this because I know that we're getting some so bad. And when we come back, I want to get into some other specifics.
We got some calls.
Yeah, we're going to take some calls. We got a bank of callers on the line, which is one of the reasons why I want to get this audio cleared up. So, folks,
listen, I'll do calls all night.
All right.
You tell me I got to shut up.
Never tell you that, my friend. Okay, Larry, we're going to get back with you. We're going to get this audio cleaned up. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this, the 13th day of September, 2012. And we're going to be right back with our very special guest, Larry Grathwohl. Stay tuned, please. And welcome back, folks, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We have to apologize for the audio difficulties we're having. Just let me explain something, ladies and gentlemen. We have got the fastest internet connection available. We have got the best line out available. We have upgraded our equipment, both hardware and software. We have done everything on our end that we can possibly do. And it seems like when we get certain guests or talk about certain topics, now you might call me a fruitcake, or you might think that, hey, this, Doug has just lost his marbles. But it seems like when we have situations where information is important, it's relevant to the Obama administration, when we have topics that seem out of the realm, it's incredible in terms of what we have to go through with respect to the audio. Now, I have to tell you this: we have made also redundancies, contingencies for our audio, and it's not anything on our end in terms. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's not the infrastructure of our program. We have professional equipment. I could show you what we've got here: the soundboards, the various connections. Now, so why am I mentioning this to you? Because personally, folks, I really believe that we as a program, are being somewhat censored in terms of what we talk about, and you might call me conspiracy nut, but I do believe that to be the case.
No, we've had unexplainable audio problems in ways that, I mean, it's affected us in ways that the only answer is sabotage, I believe.
Yeah, and we've actually documented cases, instances where there were dedicated denial of service attacks on our website concurrent with our radio show broadcast. You might say, well, geez, how does that happen? Well, it's specifically things being done to jam, overload, deny service. That's hence the name, deny service. And we have submitted the various tickets to Blog Talk. Now, again, this is important because I just want to say this. There will come a time when I believe that the Internet will be censored, but prior to this censorship, we've got to really jump through a lot of hoops. Now, we are trying to reestablish contact with Mr. Larry Grathwohl, and we're having difficulty with that. Larry, if you can hear me, or if anyone, if you can hear me, you're going to have to either hang up or disconnect or do something. We are getting a busy signal. Now, if you want to know about Larry Grathwohl, I've known him for well over probably going on 2 years now. And Larry Grathwohl, again, infiltrated the Weather Underground, and he was with Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn and all of the revolutionaries from the 1960s and early 70s. This guy was in various cities across the United States with the Weather Underground, and then he would provide information to the FBI about their activities. Yet the bombings still occurred. And no one to this day has been brought to justice for the death of a San Francisco police officer. Okay? Now, that said, you've got the revolutionaries, and we talk about this all the time. We've got the revolutionaries of the 60s, the actual bomb planters now advising the president. And then you go to research, folks. You research Larry Grathwohl and Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn, and you can see where the information about Dorn and Ayers is being systematically scrubbed from the Internet. It's now Cliff Kincaid still has quite a few articles about Ayers and Dorn, as I do as well, or as we do on HomelandSecurityUS.com. But look, there is this deliberate scrubbing of information about Ayers, about Dorn, about their activities, and specifically about their relationship to Barack Obama. And everything, folks, everything is contingent. What is to come is contingent on I don't want to say contingent. That's probably the wrong word, but it is a natural progression of events. Again, the people who did the bombings and the people who actually did the bombings back in the 60s and 70s now are in power today. And we're talking about true communists. Now, I was on the Tom Varley program out of Buffalo, New York, early this morning, and Buffalo happens to be one place where Bill Ayers met with Larry Grathwohl. Bill Ayers, Bernardine Dorn, and so on. They met with Larry Grathwohl, and that's one of the locations where the planning was conducted. I got to tell you something. Look. The planning that's going on in the White House, the communist connections in the White House, are directly related to the revolutionary or the revolution activities of the 60s and 70s. And I apologize too. I'm a little bit distracted by Joe, who's trying to, again, we're trying to reestablish contact with Mr. Ayers, or wouldn't that be something with Mr. Grathwohl? And I also take issue, folks, with Snopes too. Snopes does not have the proper information. They are an arm of the Obama administration via the Annenberg Foundation and George Soros. As a matter of fact, it's my understanding, I don't have any proof of this, but it's my understanding that Snopes is actually funded in part by Soros and Obama. But when we reestablish contact with Mr. Grathwohl, we're going to be talking about the relationship between Bill Ayers
once you get your headphones on,
and Barack Hussein Obama, and we are going to get his take as well on how that plays in, how that ties into the events over in Libya, because this is all related. It's all connected. But anyway, and folks, another thing too, do not believe a lot of what you hear and read about what's going on in Libya and Egypt. This, I believe, we are now at, I do believe that we are, the start of World War III has begun. I mean, I believe that, when I say that, I mean, I think the fuse has been lit. I think that this would happen in Libya with the death of our ambassador, and would happen in Egypt. I truly believe in the riots in Tunisia, which you're not hearing a thing about, the riots in other Middle Eastern countries, you're not hearing anything about this. I believe it is being fomented. These are being fomented by this administration. Remember when I said this back in May? There's going to be chaos in this country as well, but obviously this Middle East chaos is being perpetuated, not perpetrated, but perpetuated by this administration. Just you can take that to the bank, but don't believe everything you read about the reason, for example, for Ambassador Stevens' murder in Libya. Do not believe that there was that film that they alleged to be a pretext for his vicious murder. Is not the reason behind it. There's also some really strange occurrences between Terry Jones, who is allegedly involved in the Terry Jones, who's the controversial pastor, the anti-abortion guy, and the Koran burner. There's also some allegations that he was involved in the making of that film. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can tell you this: that film again was not part of the was not the motive behind what's taking place in the Middle East. It's coordinated. What's going on over there is coordinated, and it's purposely being conducted. Really, as kind of a diversion for the economy. The economic crash that is to come, and a few other reasons. But this is to ensure, despite the appearances right now, where people will say, "Oh, this is making Obama look terrible." No, it might in the short term cause people to question Obama, but you've got the press running defense for him, and in addition to that, you've also have some things that will result, some chaos that will result from this. Here in this country, I truly believe that what's happening over there to a lesser extent is going to happen here. I should say to a lesser extent is going to happen here. Okay, that said, folks, I'm going to jump to a call only because again I want to get other people's takes, and if you have a question for Larry, if we ever get him back from the stratosphere here, we're going to pose it to him. But I know you folks have been hold. And I believe that Larry will, or you know what, okay. Callers, hold on just for another moment or two.
Yeah, Larry's going to be calling back in, and yeah, we're going to reestablish connection. He could not get connected to us on Skype, even though we sent him a request and we can see his picture, and he said he was having difficulties on his end with his computer and phone lines, so...
Yeah, you take a breath there, my friend. You were running around the studio pretty heavily there.
he said he is used to this, and he is upset that he keeps running into this. So
yeah. Now, let me go to Troy here. Okay. Troy, can I bring you on the program, or can I bring you on? Let's see here. Okay. I'm not sure what that means here.
he says, "Hold on."
Okay. All right. Joe, again, now when you said he's used to this, he's been booted other times?
He says that he is used to being on programs and having audio difficulties while he is on the program. It's not the first time. Doesn't think it's going to be the last, and he's very frustrated, and here he is back on our Blog Talk switchboard, and let's bring him back on.
Well, what irritates me is that I've used it several times, and it just worked fine. And why all of a sudden does it not work tonight?
You're back on with us, Mr. Grathwohl.
I know, and that's a good thing. But you understand that I'm just a bit irritated. I wanted the audience to see my shining, smiling face as I was, telling them just how happy I was about everything going on in the world, and I know that your son would have been jealous, having to try to compete with me in all my radiant beauty.
Yes. I gotta tell you, you are, you're a dapper-looking gentleman. Nothing like the revolutionary that you were.
Thank you. I don't know how dapper I am, but listen, I certainly have fun making fun of myself, and I think I find the most humor with the things that I do or don't do than anyone else does. And you know what? I think that's a good thing about life. When you can laugh at yourself, it ain't so bad, huh?
Yeah, and when we can, we have to at times laugh at, or not laugh, but understand that like audio problems like this, right now my blood pressure, there's not enough medication in the medicine cabinet to get my blood pressure down because of what's taking place, and I do. Yeah, we do.
They thought they had us, they lost.
Indeed. Now, before we go any further, we're going to go to calls. But before we go any further, Larry, what are you doing this Saturday? People should know about this. And I want
this Saturday, I'm taking. I'm taking what I guess a surrogate spot for Joel Gilbert. I don't know if anyone knows who Joel is, but he is the guy that produced the movie Dreams of My Real Father. I have happened to look at that movie at least 8 times. And certainly I wouldn't want Joel to know this, but sometimes I feel like I produced the film myself. I'm sure that he would take umbrage with that, and rightfully so, because he did it. But Larry Grathwohl has looked at this thing over and over again, and basically what the film is saying is that while the birthers, as we all know who they are running around trying to figure out who the birth certificate belongs to as far as Barack Obama is concerned. In fact, it has nothing to do with the birth certificate at all. It has everything to do with his dad. His dad's not the Kenyan. That was all some kind of an arrangement made between Ann Dunham's father, who was a member of the CIA, and Frank Marshall Davis. Now, Frank Marshall Davis is a well-known card-carrying communist who was receiving his instructions from the Comintern back in the 40s and the 50s. He went to Hawaii to try to organize some kind of a problem in Hawaii to try to get that territory not to become a state. He's a well-known pornographer. He's written pornographic books. And if you look at the two of them in pictures side by side, along with the quote-unquote Kenyan, what you're going to determine is that there ain't no way that the Kenyan is Barack Obama's dad. Okay, I'm a skeptic. Remember, I grew up with the FBI. I worked a lot of stuff with those guys, and so consequently, I ask a lot of questions. I've asked those questions. I've looked at those pictures. I've looked at the video at least 6 times. And if Frank Marshall Davis isn't Barack Obama's father, I don't know who is. Now, what's interesting is to consider that Ann Dunham's father was a member of the Central Intelligence Agency. Ann Dunham moved to Hawaii. She began taking pornographic pictures for Frank Marshall Davis, who was heavy into pornography. Now, I know that, that's, immediately risque and immediately questionable because, if we want to ruin a woman's reputation, we accuse her of pornography. But I've seen the pictures. I've seen them.
You have.
I've seen a young woman who is very much relaxed, who is very comfortable with what she's doing, and it's Ann Dunham. It's Barack Obama's mother. Okay, and come on, I'm not a prude. If you want to take pictures with your clothes off, I could care less. All right, I don't approve of it, but do what turns you on. The thing is that she got pregnant by Frank Marshall Davis, who was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party.
Right.
And Ann Dunham's father was a CIA agent. Well, this is back in the 50s. We got 2 things going on here: pornography, card-carrying communists. I mean, this guy could have lost his job. He also happened to be in charge of student visas.
Oh.
He ran across, I believe then he called himself Barack Sr., Obama.
All right.
Anyway, the arrangement was made for Barack to be the father of Barack Obama. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the birth certificate, it says father unknown. Again, that's a very big thing back in the 50s. Do you remember when Barbara Eden couldn't even show us her navel on I Dream of Jeannie?
Exactly. Yeah, you couldn't even film it.
If a man and a woman was married, they had to sleep in 2 different beds with one foot on the floor at the same time. I mean, you talk about the age of prudish barbarity, that was it. Okay, here she is, and she's been betrothed to Barack Sr., who becomes the father of Barack Obama. But if you look at the pictures of these 2, Frank Marshall Davis and Barack Obama, if that ain't his dad, I'll kiss your ass. Pardon me, your butt. And later, Grandpa, that is Ann Dunham's father, takes Barack to his father, what we would call his surrogate father, and because he needs him to be mentored by a black man. And so for the next 9 years, Barack and Frank Marshall Davis spend a lot of time together, and they learn one another's philosophies and beliefs.
Okay, now
Joel Gilbert, or pardon me, I should say a DVD that Joel Gilbert produces that's called The Dreams of My Real Father, that come this Saturday I will be representing Joel at a meeting here in Cincinnati for he's got other commitments, so Larry Grathwohl gets to take his place. And I must say that I do that with great pride.
No better replacement can I think of, Larry, and I'm going to do my best to get down there, and I'm serious about
I hope
that.
you can. I really would like to.
It's a day's drive, but it's going to be well worth it to see you in person, to talk with you, and perhaps pick your brain a little bit more. That's for sure.
If I had a plane, I'd fly you down, but Joel didn't let me borrow his.
Yeah. So it's your position that Barack Hussein Obama is the illegitimate offspring of Ann Dunham and Frank Marshall Davis. Is that your position?
Okay, it's is that my belief? Yes. Can
Okay.
I prove it? No.
No, of course not.
But I sincerely believe that. If you look at the pictures of them, if you listen to their philosophy, if you listen to what Barack has to say, and even to the speaking patterns of Frank Marshall Davis. Again, I'm one of these people that says if it walks like a duck, has feathers, and quacks, it's a duck. Now, that doesn't always prove everything, and I'm sure that, that there's people like Axelrod that would try to take me to the woodshed, but it's, facts are facts.
No, you're right. Well, let's take some calls, Larry. Yeah. Let's go ahead, Joe.
We've had some callers on hold for a while. We're going to go right to area code 562. We'll start with you. You're on live with the Hagmann Hagmann Report and Mr. Larry Grathwohl.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, sir.
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good. Actually, I'm an acquaintance of Larry's. I'm a retired FBI agent, and Larry started out talking. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Rick Hahn, H-A-H-N.
Oh, Rick, God, yes, absolutely. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great, Larry. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and even better now that I hear your voice on the line.
Yeah. No, one of the things I wanted to bring to the table here is you started out, Larry, talking about in religion that there's no real reason for these believers in Muhammad, Islamists, to be killing Americans and whatnot. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that this week in USA Today, actually yesterday on Wednesday, there was an article by a professor from Georgetown University who was lamenting the fact that there's been such a lack of interest in the tortures that were carried on by U.S. forces, CIA, whatever, contractors and whatnot, during the Bush administration. And gee, what a shame this is that we've lost interest, that gosh, we should really care about these tortures, when in fact simultaneously CNN published an article saying that the Obama administration has had 6 times more predator strikes in the 3 years that they've been in office than the Bush administration had in 8 years. And in those predator strikes, of course, there's lots of collateral damage. I mean, the president of this United States has decided that they are not going to take hostages, they are not going to take prisoners, they are not going to interrogate them for any intelligence that they may have, they are not going to try to rehabilitate them, they instead are simply going to kill them, including U.S. citizens, done twice now. So, when you say...
Let me make a response, and I don't want to lose you, okay? But let me say this. You're absolutely right. There's collateral damage, isn't there? And that's true in every war. There's simply no way that that we can pick out one isolated enemy and drop the bomb or the bullet on that individual and say amen and walk away and have clean hands. But here's the thing. When have you been and I know you and I have been in these similar situations where our anger and our frustration boils to the top. When have you had the temptation to go capture somebody and saw his head off with a butcher knife?
That's an interesting question, Larry. And there are people that, yes, of course. There's that vicarious kind of thing where you want to just kill your enemy. But the fact of the matter is...
But how would you kill him, Rick? You'd shoot him. You wouldn't cut their head off with a butcher knife.
No, I may choke him to death.
Right? I mean, I think that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that we don't, as angry as we get, as much frustration as we might feel, to put a woman in the ground up to her chest and throw rocks at her until she's dead is simply something that we just don't think of, do we?
Right.
Okay,
no,
now I guess you could argue with me that a bullet is that more is that better? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, trying to saw someone's head off with a butcher knife is savage.
Well, my point is this, Larry, is that while the media back in 2008 was wailing away at the Bush administration for their torture, quote unquote, of these captured terrorists, now nobody raises an eyebrow about the fact that this president has killed probably 6 or 7 times more.
Okay,
certainly
and I get
the
it
number
now,
of predator
Rick.
strikes.
Point well made.
Yeah, the number of predator strikes is 6 times higher. So
I was
figure
criticizing you for the wrong reason, and I apologize. I see exactly what you're saying. The waterboarding doesn't even come close.
Exactly.
Right?
I've been wine-boarded several times.
You have, Rick?
I've been wine-boarded.
Wine?
That's when they hold me down, they pour wine down my throat.
Yeah. Listen, Rick's a good friend of mine. This Rick Hahn is the guy that led the investigation for the FBI for the FALN. And you guys, if you can get his information, you should try to get him on your show. He's a very reputable, honest person, and I hold him in very high regard and very high esteem.
That's great.
That's very nice, Larry. But the point of my call in here is just to point out that while this administration may very well, be part and parcel, and they were part and parcel of all the criticism of the Bush administration, and we're going to shut down all the black sites, and we're going to shut down Guantanamo. Well, this man's solution is to simply go out and kill everyone. And that, in my view, is this an improvement? Come on, I don't think so. I mean, I really believe...
It kind of goes back to what I'm saying about lethal injection, doesn't it? It's like, gee, let's cut their throat off with a butcher knife instead of using lethal injection. Excuse me, if I can waterboard somebody and find out where the next big action's going to take place, guess what? Waterboard.
Well, exactly. And
my
you know
job
what?
is to protect American people.
If you read the book, and I'm going to forget the name of it, but there's literature out there that simply says that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, once he broke once he decided to cooperate, he cooperated fully.
Yes.
And in fact, the most important thing that he told us is that his God, his religion tells him that once he has held up against the interrogators as long as he can, then he has served his service to his God. Yeah. And understanding that was a real eye opener apparently for the agency, for the CIA. So, I mean, the bottom line is that there's no point in saying, oh, geez, we shouldn't be capturing people and we shouldn't be interrogating them. Oh, leaving the light on for 24 hours a day, not giving them any more than bread and water, maybe even water. And mind you, the CIA.
Look what they did to our POWs in the Hanoi Hilton, and you tell me.
That's exactly right. The CIA agents only waterboarded 3 individuals.
Okay.
3 individuals. And
our only problem, Rick,
none of them
you and I were born at the wrong time. You and I should have been alive in the late '60s and the early '70s. I think things might have turned out differently.
Gentlemen, let me interrupt here. Rick, let me ask you a question. We got a guy now. Rick, as a retired FBI agent, who's in the White House? Do we know?
Who's in the White House?
Yeah. Do we actually?
Think anyone knows. I don't think anyone knows.
Okay.
I saw the movie Obama 2016, and I think that's as close to an accurate assessment of who's in the White House as anything I've seen. That's my view.
Okay. Now, that said, and I know how you mentioned about torture renditions and so on, and drone strikes, and I know how all this connects, but I've got a question here. About 5 people just sent me in instant messages here to ask you, being a retired federal agent, these orders of ammunition that are being made, that are well publicized, all this ammunition, the 1.88 billion rounds, where's that going? Do we know, or why is the federal government ordering so much ammunition? You've heard about that, right?
I have heard about it, but I frankly I can't comment on that. I've been retired for 13 years.
Okay.
I really have no idea.
Okay, all right. Well, and my last question to you, Rick, is what in your estimation, and I know you can't read, well, maybe you can, and you don't have a crystal ball, but what's Obama up to, given his past, given his relationship with Bill Ayers and Dorn and everyone else? What's Obama up to right now? What are his plans? What's going on here? We have a revolutionary in the White House. What do you think is the long-term agenda of this guy?
Oh, I really think that Obama does not believe that America is any better than any other country. I think that he believes that America should just be part of some community, and that, using that word, I believe that Obama is essentially at the heart of his politics is he's a socialist communist.
Okay.
In my view,
I think community in that case, Rick, can be spelled with a low C. It's not a capital C. It's a low C.
There's nothing like an American. Americans are exceptional. They're industrious. They're self-improvement oriented. They're motivated to achieve. They're different from any other, quote, nationality, unquote, the world has ever seen. Americans are not an ethnic group. They're not a racial group. They're not a religious group. They're not a tribal group. They're not even a political group. They're a unified group of diverse, very, very diverse individuals who believe in personal freedoms above all. E pluribus unum, from one many. They believe in the right to work for whatever they want, to strive to achieve whatever they dream they can achieve, to believe that it's more worth living a life trying to achieve your dreams than is to be held from the ability to try. They believe that win or lose, the right to endeavor is the inspiration for life, putting to work the desires one has for oneself, for one's loved ones, for one's children.
Mm-hmm.
Americans understand that an idea can change the world. Look at Steve Jobs. He believed so much in himself, he was willing to do whatever it took to see his deep dreams realized. He was the modern equivalent of Edison or the Wright brothers or Hewlett and Packard. And to realize their dreams, they believed, they understood, they needed investors. Folks with some money to put down to move the idea forward was a necessity in each case. Their success was a result of both ingenuity on the part of the leaders, like Edison and Wright and whatnot, and the investment by capitalists.
And
could this exist? Could this exist in any other system?
George Washington to be one of the greatest Americans that ever lived. I mean, think about this, guys. They offered him the kingship. They offered to make him king.
Mm-hmm.
Even the King of England said he's nuts if he doesn't do it, and he didn't do it. He is the epitome of what we are. And Rick, I can't thank you enough. You've said some very succinct things for me this evening that I really appreciated.
Well, Larry, you are an American hero, and we both know that.
Well,
that's right. That's right.
You did things for America that few people have had the opportunity, but fewer more would ever take the risk. So, congratulations to you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And coming from you, it really has meaning.
Well, Rick, thank you so much for your call. Larry, we got a full bank of callers here. We're gonna move right along. God bless you, Rick, man. Thanks for the call.
My pleasure, guys.
All right, man.
Thank you. We're going to move right along here. Area code 704. Thanks for holding. You are on air with Hagmann Hagmann Report and Mr. Grathwohl.
Go ahead, caller. 704 area code. You're on with Doug and Joe Hagmann. Or you won't be here in a second. 704 area code. You're on with Doug and Joe.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was saying hello.
Oh, you were saying hello. All right. Well, we're going to cut that caller loose.
I'm trying to get him. I want to hear what he's got to say.
I do too. These gremlins are just incredible. Okay, let's move along.
We're going to go to area code 224. I think this is Mel. I'm not sure. 224. You're on air with the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hi, it's Mel. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Thankfully.
Yeah. How you brothers doing?
Very well. What's your question for Larry or comment?
Yeah, well, it's a comment. That's going to be a question. I'm just going to make it quick. And here in Chicago, there's a Communist Party. I remember, I don't remember which year it was when Obama was running for elections. I called the number here. I was a college student, you know how in college schools you get indoctrinated. I used to be, I guess, like a socialist, but I called the Communist Party at the time, and I called them. I asked them, do you guys think we're going to see socialism in this country? And they said that I think it's going to happen with Barack Obama. So they have people. They told me that they have people volunteering in the elections, and they even had some politicians too. That are communists. Like they had an attorney general in the state.
A minute. How old?
He's 23.
Pardon?
I'm 23.
You're 23.
How old are you?
Yeah.
23, Larry.
23. So you are the epitome of what they're looking for.
Yeah. I know.
Isn't it true that when we're that age, we are liberals, aren't we?
Yeah.
We want everything to be the way we think it should be. And then here they come, Bill Ayers, Bernadine Dorn, and they give you the answers. And I'm not saying just you. It's everybody, because you're susceptible to that. You want to believe in the good. And the problem is you know what? That isn't quite the way life is it?
No.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could all just be one just big happy family and Barack Obama and the Nazis and all the rest of them wouldn't be trying to kill people?
Yeah, Mel, what's your question for Larry?
Yeah, my question is, if Barack Obama has people who are communists working for him and with him, how come that they're not in trouble for that? How come they don't get how come they're not exposed?
You know, Van Jones was run out of office, and you know he certainly was an avowed communist. But here's the thing: well, first of all, you know, we create a layer of bureaucracy. We call them the czars, right? Now, these are people that don't even have to appear before Congress and explain what their political beliefs or their political views are. Isn't that nice? You know, they get to be appointed to very important, prestigious positions and never tell us what they think or what they believe. In addition to that, we've got, you know, associates such as Jeff Jones. Jeff Jones is the head of the Apollo Group. Jeff Jones is one of the founders of the Weather Underground organization. The Weather Underground. These are the people that were trying to blow your country up. And he's an advisor to the President of the United States concerning the stimulus package and Medicare.
Right.
Or pardon me, Obamacare.
Well.
Now, tell me how this happens. You know, where I came from, you know, people like this had to be vetted, didn't they?
No one vetted this idiot.
Didn't they? If you were going to give me a job in the federal government of some semblance of importance and prestige, wouldn't you want to know who I was and what I thought?
Oh.
And you know what? I would want to tell you.
Of course.
I would.
Yeah. Mel, anything else?
I know what I thought. So if you disagree with me, you could tell me to go to hell. That's okay.
I agree with you. I just wanted to say, like, what turned me back was the roots back to the Constitution of the country, just the reality of this treasonous takeover from within from Obama and his entourage. So it was the Constitution that I looked to that helped me wake up to this.
Exactly. Well,
but the problem is that we've decided that the Constitution is an outdated document written by old white men 200 years ago. Now, you know, these old white men, when they sat down, they figured out that there was certain things that would threaten a constitution and threaten a constitutional republic. And they tried to write laws that would ensure that there was protections. Just as an example, and I'm sure you've heard this one fought over and over again, is the Second Amendment, right? You know, the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
And they love to tell us that, hey, you know, the Second Constitution was for, you know, in case you had to fight Indians or in case you had to fight bears or, you know, shoot a possum or...
hunting.
My friend, this country had just fought the greatest revolution in the world. We had defeated the most powerful country in the world. And the reason that the Second Amendment is in there is to make sure that you have the right to overthrow that government in the event that it impinges upon your constitutional rights. That's why it's there. It's not there so you can kill bears. When's the
Right.
last time you saw a bear in your front yard?
Well,
Well, hey, Mel, we're going to let you go and move on to some other callers.
you.
I appreciate
God bless you, man.
Appreciate your call. And Mr. Grathwohl, you're exactly right. The Second Amendment is to protect against a tyrannical government if a tyrannical government was ever to rise. And Mr. Jefferson said it best when he said, I fear for my country that if this country is ever overthrown, he fears that it would be from an inside threat instead of an outside force. And he was 100% accurate. We are being overthrown by an inside threat that has, basically under the radar, swept its way into power.
Mm-hmm.
If more people paid attention to what was going on back in the 70s and saw what, your interview from back then, we have a sound clip, I think, from 79.
Yeah,
and we wouldn't be here now.
Yeah, I'm going to play that sound clip. Larry, believe it or not, a lot of people have not heard this. Okay, your interview from, I think, what was that 83 when you gave that 2-minute interview?
Play it and I'll tell you.
All right, it's 2 minutes long, folks. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is Mr. Grathwohl, some 20-some years ago. Stand by. All right.
It reminds you of the Germans, doesn't it?
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
Has that
Put them in boxcars and trail them off, and we'll get rid of them.
Well, what year was that interview, Larry?
Excuse me?
When did you do that interview that we just heard?
1984. I was
19...
pardon me, excuse me, it was 1984. It was 1983.
83.
And I was in Cleveland, Ohio. Glenda Evans, Mark Rudd, Bernadine Dorn, Bill Ayers, and several other people were there. There was about 25 of us all together. That I was always the one that kind of stirred the boat. Once having figured out that the Cubans and the Vietnamese had said you need somebody from the army, somebody from the working class. I can't even really tell you when I figured that out, but it became apparent to me that this was my opportunity to stir up the pot, so to speak. And so whenever I was given a chance, I stirred it up. And for the most part, and I don't mean this from a racial context, but for the most part, the Weathermen were made up of Jewish people. And I was, which just astounded me even more that they were so willing and ready to see their people and other people murdered on a mass scale with absolutely no compulsion. And so I tried to bring this to their attention. I wanted to see a reaction. I wanted a gut feeling. And sometimes I had to back off because I knew I was pressing it too hard, and that if I had continued to do so, that I ran the risk of being kicked out of the organization because, I wasn't asking the right questions. But, it's true.
Kind of like today.
Huh?
Kind of like today, nothing's changed. I mean, you ask the wrong questions, you say the wrong things, you get kicked out of whatever. You lose,
and kicked out is a good thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean...
You could be killed.
Well, that's true. But now the fact that the Weather Underground was composed primarily or in large part of people of Jewish faith, why? I mean, I don't get that.
You know what? I will struggle with that question for the rest of my life. I have no idea. I think that it was because a lot of what they referred to later in years as the red diaper babies were from Jewish families, and that maybe that was the reason for it. But it's very difficult for me to watch programs on TV that have to do with the atrocities that were committed against the Jewish people by the Germans, and not be affected by it.
Oh, of course.
And then to hear Ahmadinejad or some other Arab, with his head extricated so far up his butt that he couldn't see light out his tongue, tell me that it never happened.
Mm.
My people, and when I say my people, I'm not just referring to, Americans, Germans, Italians, Jews. I mean, it was our people that went into Germany and took the pictures of these concentration camps and brought them back to us. It's our people, and it was no doubt they did this.
Well, Larry, do you think? Okay, look. Do you think Obama has any? What would you call it? Aversion to creating? I mean, or to doing something like this in today's world? I mean, when I say Obama, I'm talking about Ayers, Dorn, Obama, that whole motley crew.
Remember, it's if you look at Adolf Hitler and you look at Himmler and all the rest of them monsters. What I don't even know what you would want to call them. Human excrement. And if you look at how they operated, they never had any conscience for what the other one was doing. Now that's pretty easy, isn't it?
Sure.
I say, hey Joe, I think we need to get rid of 10,000 of these people, and Joe says, that's not a bad idea. And then for Larry, it's all over. I don't even have to think about it anymore. Joe's doing it. And then Joe says, Doug, get rid of these people, and guess what? Joe don't even have to think about it. Doug's got to deal with it. And Doug gets, 50 or 60 of his thugs, and they take care of it, and it's those 50 or 60 that are how many now removed from me and you that have to deal with that. Do you think that Adolf Hitler ever considered the fact that he had blood on his hands?
Wow, that's an interesting viewpoint.
I think he did, but I think he justified it in the racial ethnic cleansing he was trying to carry out.
But he didn't have to do anything.
No, it's like the Charles Manson.
I think that is really the point, isn't it, Doug?
Yeah, exactly.
He didn't have to think about it because the blood wasn't on his hands.
That's true.
Listen, I've been in a war, okay, so I know when you pull the trigger, the blood's on your hands. Okay, there's no way that you can stick your head in a rat's hole and try to act like, gee, it wasn't me that pulled that trigger. But if you're Adolf Hitler and you say, hey Doug, get rid of these 50 million people, and then Doug goes out and finds Adolf Eichmann and 20 or 30 other people like that, and they fill the trains up and they send them off. All of a sudden, I've got an insulator. I've got a way to say that I really didn't do it.
Right.
But it doesn't change it.
Right.
Correct.
That's right.
And I don't know. I'm kind of running in circles at this point, and I apologize because I don't know how quite to explain it to you, but I know this much: if someone told me to do something like that, it would be the end of me.
See, you've got a conscience. You've got a moral compass. I think we're dealing with people that don't have either. I think we're dealing with with if Obama, for example, is not a Muslim, a closet Muslim, then he is a communist and an atheist at the very least. I look.
Joseph Stalin, he got rid of 20 million.
Yeah, Pol Pot.
They got rid of at least 60 million. Can you imagine that?
No, I see,
and we can't. And it's happened so much.
Yeah, exactly. Now we've got about a minute left, Larry. Give me your best closing thought here in the minute remaining. If you could tell America anything, and you will be telling America and the world anything, what would it be right now?
Find God.
Amen.
Wow.
Find God. The real God. Not the one that says that you'll get 72 virgins. That's not God. I'm talking about the one that says turn your cheek to the other guy. Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian, and I believe that. And that's what we need. You know what the problem in this country today is, that we've totally turned ourselves away from it. It's like there's an argument about whether or not we can even have God in the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time.
This country was founded on God.
Yeah.
And,
not anymore, though.
Maybe I'm speaking to the choir, but do you guys believe in God?
Absolutely. We give our life to Jesus Christ, and we try to further His word and spread it to as many people as possible. That is our goal.
So do I. And you know what? I don't think I'm the most successful person in the world, and I have a feeling that when my day comes, God's not going to be as happy with me as I hope He is. But you know what? I'm not going to give in to hatred and to severity like the world seems to have done.
Larry Grathwohl, as always, a very distinct pleasure to have you on. If you're in the Cincinnati area, Saturday you're going to be speaking at the Tea Party event there, folks.
I hope you can get there. I really do.
I'm going to try.
Look forward to seeing you if you can. And gentlemen, you know where I'm at. I'm always happy to do a show for you. I enjoy them immensely, and I think we had fun tonight.
I think so, too. Larry, you're a class act, my friend.
You guys have a good evening, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Grathwohl.
God bless you.
God bless you, sir. What a class act he is. You know, I've got to tell you that I want to say thank you to all the people who put up with the
sound problems
over there. And
have a great night, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't forget to join us tomorrow, Friday, and regular time, 8 o'clock. We will be here. God bless you all.
And by the way, I'll bet you we won't have any sound problems tomorrow.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.